Hello, everybody. Welcome into the VOLatile podcast. This is our first episode, our inaugural episode. This is your podcast that is your weekly reminder that being a Vols fan is a terminal diagnosis that we all share. My name is Mac Williams, and I'll be kind of facilitating, hosting the discussion here. I've been a Tennessee fan for my whole life, which is 30 years. My favorite Vol for life, my favorite player ever to go through the University of Tennessee has got to be Casey Clausen. Grew up, in the early 2000s, getting to watch those teams beat Florida, and that was a huge and awesome thing as a kid. Wish we got more of that lately, so I love the Vols. Been a fan my whole life, and I would say my favorite Vols memory is going to the Tennessee Bama game in 2022 and getting to watch us beat Alabama for the first time in 16 years. I'll kick it over to Jeff.
Hey, yeah, Jeff Wright, pastor. If you're on Vol Twitter, I'm Mr. VOLtitude. So I'm the old head in the group. My favorite Vol memory, I was in the stadium in 2004 when Will Hoyt kicked the game-winning field goal after, I think he missed a field goal or an extra point earlier in the game, and got to watch him beat Florida. Favorite Vol all time is tough because, again, I'm old, but it's probably Al Wilson. I love the attitude and the energy he brought to the game. So big Al Wilson fan.
Joe, why don't you go next?
So I'm my name's Joe. I'm glad to be here. I'm the newest convert to being a Tennessee fan. Wasn't born and raised in Tennessee. Moved here about 10 years ago with my family, and growing up in Jersey, college football just wasn't a big thing. It was all pro growing up, big Steeler fan. And I actually have fellow co-host here, Nick, to thank for sucking me into the fandom of the terminal diagnosis that never goes away. And so I've been a fan.
All my friends to be miserable with me.
That's right. And so I've been a fan for about 10 years now. And so my pick is going to be kind of recent, but I'm a big Juwan Jennings guy. Loved watching him play. Got to go see him play at Missouri in the frigid cold. And growing up a Steelers fan, Hines Ward was kind of my guy, and he's got a lot of Hines Ward energy. So big Juwan Jennings guy.
Nice. Nick, round us out.
Yep. So my name is Nick Duncan, and like Mac and probably Jeff, been a Vols fan all my life. Both of my papaws were huge Vols fans, and one of them still is. He's 92, still watches the Vols. And
he survived that long? Good man. He must be iron.
He's resilient. He's just living still in the days of General Nealon, I think.
Yeah. Dude, he laughed COVID off. He's like, I lived through Dooley. Bring it on, COVID.
Oh, gosh. My other papa was also a huge Vols fan. He used to sit in his recliner every Saturday, and he would wear a pair of khaki pants and a white T-shirt and Vols suspenders over his white T-shirt. And so I grew up going to one of their houses pretty much every Saturday, watching Tennessee football. My dad took me to games when I was a kid. And my dad actually is from Georgia. And so he was actually a Georgia fan growing up. And he kind of got converted because I love Tennessee football so much. And his dad, my papa, who's 92, is from East Tennessee. And so he wandered away for a while and backslid, but he came back to the fold. And so my other papa sadly passed away about 5 years ago. I'm actually wearing one of his T-shirts tonight. He fought in Vietnam, and so this is one of his T-shirts. But was a huge Vols fan, and so just grew up not very far from Knoxville in East Tennessee. So everybody that I knew growing up was a Vols fan, and there were no all these Alabama fans you find in Tennessee now were non-existent when I was growing up, and so. Yeah, at least a third generation Vol fan, Gator hater. So favorite player is Leonard Little. So I used to love watching Leonard Little get on the line of scrimmage, and he would just stand there and he would cross his arms. He would even get a 3-point stance a lot of the time, and then he would take off and go sack the quarterback. My favorite picture is a picture of him just standing ice cold, looking down at this Auburn player that he just murdered during a play. And so, oh gosh, did I say Leonard Little and murder in the same sentence? Sorry. This was before Leonard Little actually killed someone. I should be clear.
Oh my gosh!
I'm not.
I was getting ready to make the joke that he was known to run over people.
Yeah.
And you did it so much better.
I'm not vouching for Leonard Little's personal life, but he is my favorite Vols player. I loved watching him play growing up. And favorite memory, there are a lot. I have a really weird one. One of my favorite memories is during the '98 season. That part's not weird, but I'm gonna pick an odd game. One of my most vivid memories is watching Tennessee beat Syracuse by a field goal. They had Donovan McNabb, Keith Bullock. It was the first game of the year. I was like 9 years old, and my dad wanted to go buy a four-wheeler that Saturday, and I was just upset because I was like, "What Tennessee plays?" And he was like, "Oh, it's Syracuse, son. They're going to kill Syracuse." And I was like, "Well, I think they're supposed to be pretty good this year." And so we went to Tazewell. If anyone's from East Tennessee, they know where Tazewell is. It's absolutely in the middle of nowhere. But we went to Tazewell, drove like an hour to this four-wheeler dealership, and there was this little black and white 10-inch screen like up in the corner over the desk where you checked out. And I watched us beat Syracuse on this little TV because my dad just thought it wasn't going to be a good game. And that's just I don't know, that's a special kind of vivid memory and became more special as that season went on. So that's probably my biggest memory.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one for sure. For sure. Well, yeah, thanks guys for introducing yourself. And yeah, so we're just a friend group. We live here in Middle Tennessee, and we decided we wanted to start this podcast because we spend hours each week probably, whether it's through a chat or through in person, seeing each other, arguing about Vol sports anyways. And so we just thought, hey, why not turn this into a podcast that people will maybe listen to? And if not, we'll still just have fun doing it. And also just because, we're passionate fans, but we're, just common fans who want to bring some common fan perspective to those of you out there who are listening to a lot of more buttoned up and professional podcasts out there talking about sports as a whole, but also Tennessee sports more specifically. And we thought this would maybe a fun alternative to your listening, and hopefully you'll add it to your weekly rotation of podcasts that you're listening to. So we're going to kick off tonight with kind of the biggest news. We don't want to bury the lead here. And that's that hours before we jumped on here, it's kind of rumored. I don't think it's official yet. If anyone knows that it's official, definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems pretty like it's going to happen. And that's Jim Knowles has been hired as our defensive coordinator. So I'm going to go ahead and just go through a quick background on Jim Knowles, just a quick run through of his various stops and kind of his history. And then we'll just kind of kick it around and discuss what we think about that. So Jim Knowles, he played for Cornell in the 80s, early 80s. And then that was also his first coaching stop. He was a D-line coach at Cornell, running backs coach at Cornell a few years later. And then he finished up at Cornell in his first stint there as the linebackers and recruiting coordinator, linebackers coach and recruiting coordinator. And then kind of late 90s, he moved on to Western Michigan. He was a D-line coach there for about 5 years, and that's when he got his first defensive coordinator position at Western Michigan. And so kind of a cool little stat about his time at Western Michigan. When he was the DC there, Western Michigan's program had their first NFL draft pick that was under Jim Knowles, which was Jason Babin, if y'all remember him. Some of you might. I know Joe's kind of the biggest NFL fan of the four of us, but Jason Babin was drafted by the Texans, and he played for a lot of teams. Most notable, I think, would be the Eagles. I think his time with the Eagles was kind of his most successful. And then second to that, honestly, would be his time with the Titans. He was with the Titans for about a year. So that's just a kind of fun stat there. Then he went to Ole Miss and was the linebackers coach and recruiting coordinator at Ole Miss. That's his only SEC experience until now, if he gets his Tennessee job. Then he went back to Cornell to be a head coach for about 5 years. Did not have a great record there, but I'm sure that's more due to the resources that Cornell has or lack thereof. Then we get into kind of the bulk of his experience and kind of I think the more notable stuff, which is his first like power 4 or power 5 at the time, but power 4 job would have been as a defensive coordinator would have been at Duke. So he started as a safeties coach under David Cutcliffe.
Let's go.
And then he moved after 1 year being the safeties coach. He got promoted to the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. So he was there for about 6 years. And in his last year at Duke, Duke had a top 25 defense in 7 categories. So I think he kind of turned that Duke defense around. Admittedly, I wasn't super in tune with Duke football from 2011 to 2017, so I can't say for sure how good they were. I was watching good teams play football. And then so from Duke, he went on to Oklahoma State, defensive coordinator there for 3 years, had a top 10 national ranked defense in his last year there. So both those first 2 stops, you see this progression of him getting better over the years, than his last year there, having a pretty highly ranked defense. Then was Ohio State. This is kind of his most, obviously, biggest program, most notable stop. He was at Ohio State as the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach for 3 seasons. And they had the number 1 ranked defense last year, and also won national championship, as you know. And in this past year, or this season that we're kind of in the midst of wrapping up, he was at Penn State. And obviously, Penn State did not have a very good season. I watched a couple Penn State games this year, and I think their defense was pretty good. I don't think it was bad, but I just, obviously there's a lot of drama going on there, so I'm not sure how much data extrapolation we can actually do from their defense this year. But one note about that stop is this year at Penn State, he was the highest paid defensive coordinator in football. So there's clearly some value there that James Franklin and obviously Ryan Day saw in Jim Knowles, and he has a quite a pedigree of being a defensive coordinator throughout college football. So let me just run through real quick, like kind of some things that I've put together through just kind of researching Jim Knowles and kind of looking into his background. What he's going to bring to the table for Tennessee is, he has a proven track record of elite defenses kind of everywhere he's gone. Defenses have gotten better, and they've gotten to a top 25, top 10, number 1 ranked defense in his time there. He has a history of, turning programs around defensively, being consistent. He has experience in big time games, obviously. One thing I've read a little bit about is he has a lot of scheme flexibility. So it sounds like he's kind of well-versed in different defenses and is willing to kind of move things around depending on, the Jimmies and Joes that he's got. And then obviously with the hire like this, you're getting kind of instant credibility when it comes to recruiting defensive players, things like that. And a lot of history of him being recruiting coordinator and, kind of working with players hands-on, getting them on campus. So guys, I just want to start by asking, when the news broke today that we were potentially hiring Jim Knowles, and it sounds like it's pretty certain, what was your kind of initial reaction? Jeff, I'll start with you just because you were kind of the first one to kind of talk about it. What were you thinking when Jim Knowles came through?
I was thinking it was completely off the radar. I had no idea that he was a candidate, and that seems pretty consistent with the reporting that I've read. I've been cramming on that in free time this afternoon, that he doesn't have any ties to Heupel. And it's really weird to see Heupel fire a staff member. Now it's really weird to see him hire somebody he doesn't have ties to. Immediately the media was gushing over it, right? So you get excited about that, except back when I watched the NBA before it went stupid woke, I learned there that like the coaches that gush over are the ones that they have a good relationship with, right? So like there's a quid pro quo there. And I guess I'm excited. I mean, the guy has the pedigree you're talking about, but I'm not sure if this is the right time. You can tell me, Coach Mack, but I have some reservations. I mean, and just, for anybody who's watching this who doesn't know us, among this group, I was the most bloodthirsty to fire Tim Banks. So maybe I'm too battered Vol, but either way, I wanted him gone. But now that I've read about Jim, I have some questions.
Well, on that note, Mac, you're the one who's been doing most of the research on this. Does he have a reputation for running a disciplined locker room? Is the room kind of in agreement that one of the things that Heupel really needs is a strong hand, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, it seems like we've had a lot of issues in the locker room. And so, when I'm looking at the pedigree, and it seems to sort of speak for itself, he's clearly qualified. But is he the kind of guy who's going to be able to manage the locker room? That's my big question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff. I can't say for sure that that's something that I've seen as like a common theme through his coaching tenure, but you just have to assume a guy of his age who's a little bit older, has been in the game for a long time. I mean, he's been coaching nearly 30 years, or maybe coming up on 40. You would think that because he's an older guy, he probably kind of has that old school coaching mentality. So I would assume that he's probably a little bit more hard nosed than maybe what we're used to seeing, and I would imagine that he would bring some of that to the table. To your point, though, I don't know that it's one of his main strengths that people are talking about, which I do think is something that we possibly need or probably need.
Yeah.
Well, not to rain on your parade, but I read 2 different people saying that he's kind of a milder personality. Now, I totally agree that Heupel's got to have a bad cop at some point. Somebody's got to instill some discipline there. I actually don't necessarily have to have that from the defensive coordinator, because I think probably the way Auburn filled out their staff and his age, I'm betting Rodney Garner will hang around. And so I think you will have a strong personality on that side of the ball. I just don't think it's going to come from this guy. So even that's not, with my reservations, that's not really it. I just think that he's probably, if there's going to be a bad cop in the room, it's still probably going to be Rodney, not him.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely I think it's definitely a pro that he has coached defenses at the highest level. I mean, we're all familiar with what Ohio State did to us last year in the college football playoff, and he was their defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Some of us are a little too familiar with what they did to us.
Some of us saw it with our naked eyes standing in the top of that stupid horseshoe stadium, freezing to death. It was brutal. One of the more brutal trips that I've been on, and I've been on some pretty brutal trips.
Hey, that's a whole nother episode. That's a whole nother episode.
So, one of the things that I'm excited about is scheme flexibility. I forgot what that was. I think over the last many years of watching Tennessee defense just continue to do the same thing over and over, and sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. And so the ability to make adjustments or to play to your personnel is a pro. And another thing that I read about Jim Knowles is apparently his defense, though complex, has to have kind of cerebral and really athletic safeties. And when was the last time we had like elite safeties at the University of Tennessee? So
last name Barry. It's been that long.
Yeah, it's been a minute. So I'm looking forward to those aspects, assuming that some of the other things that you mentioned that are potentially red flags end up not being red flags. If those don't end up being red flags, then I'm really excited about the ability to adjust, the ability to have a bigger role for safeties that are more athletic. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. And kind of touching on that, going back to what Joe said about the kind of, coaching with a big stick, I guess, or kind of being, a disciplinarian, I guess. I can't, Jeff, you read his milder personality. That may be true. I don't know. One thing that I did read about his coaching style, and I think this is more just from like how he teaches his players to play. I don't necessarily think this is reflective of his personality, but one thing that I kept seeing was, Jim Knowles' defenses have a pattern of just being, super physical, really aggressive play calling, and trying to really disrupt the passer, kind of create some turnovers, things like that. And I think obviously if any of us think back to Ohio State teams over the last handful of years, that's definitely like in their DNA, and so yeah. It's easy to look at Ohio State teams and be like, well, of course they were good because they have, consistently
the best players in the country.
The best players, or, and if they don't have them, Alabama has them, right? But who knows what he can do with, a talent pool at Tennessee who's trying to kind of move up into that upper echelon of the SEC. But I do think there is some hopefulness there of like, I would just love to see us get back to just playing some nasty defense. I would love to
watch us wrap up when we tackle.
That would be, that would be great too. Yeah, for sure.
Instead of just using your shoulder all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I think, I guess really where I'm at with Jim Knowles is, of course, it could go poorly. This could be his worst defensive coordinator stop of the handful in the last few years. But with a guy like this, you're kind of dumb not to at least try to get him, I think. Like, he's such a big name, such a savant in college football. I just think that he's a guy that you got to take a swing at, and if you can get him, you got to get him. So that's kind of where I landed. But, of course, I mean, the proof's in the pudding, right? We all just want to see us win and play good defense and have a consistent offense. So, if Heupel can get that with Jim Knowles, then great. And if not, then I think we're kind of back to square one, unfortunately. So, yeah, let's go ahead and just wrap this into Tim Banks talk.
Hey, Mac, before you move on.
Yeah, sure.
Here's the thing about Jim that gives me a little bit of pause. I read consistently that his defenses get better over about 3 to 4 year period.
Sure.
And I saw a couple people, they in like write-ups or tweets were saying there's one specific quote from him saying, "It takes a while for players to get my system. It takes a while to see, how good it will be is how quickly they uptake or whatever, right? Because of the complexity and the adaptability of the scheme." So I don't know if Tennessee has that time. So we need a better defense this coming year. If his defenses get great year 3, year 4, look, hallelujah. But we're about to go into a brutal schedule. And we're losing our best cornerback. And we're probably losing our second best cornerback. And, we'll get Gibson back. Arian Carter, they're talking about that maybe he's going to explore his future in the NFL. So, like, needing high intellect players, I just don't know. I would think of Arian Carter as one of those. I would think of Colton Hood as one of those. But I'm just nervous that the need to be so much better on defense so soon after a disappointing previous season, then you have a much tougher schedule with a guy who takes a little while to catch everybody up to what he's got going on so that it's operating at max capacity. That could be a very dangerous combination. And to throw back, and again, I don't want to
looking at a Phil Fulmer situation.
Exactly right. Remember the claw fence? The claw fence was going to reinvigorate Phil's, career and all this stuff. And it may have, Clausen ended up being a pretty decent coach, I guess, at other stops. But we just didn't have that time with Phil, right? It needed to happen quicker. And so I do think there's a version of this. Now, if I can mitigate my own depression here, maybe this is a deal where Danny White told Josh Heupel, "I'm not going to do you like I did Tony V. You've got a 3-year, 4-year window where I'm in your corner. If it's time for you to go, they'll have to get rid of me too. We're going to build this thing for the long term." I have I don't even know if that's feasible in the current landscape of college football. Right. But maybe this is hey, Josh Heupel wants to retire here. This guy's going to develop it over a couple of years. We're going to take our lumps. I just have a little bit of nervousness with a fan base that's already burned out on the previous defensive coordinator. If we start slow, if it takes a while, if next year it doesn't look super great, if there's an appetite among boosters to kind of put up for in year 3, it's going to be killer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Of course, we did have like the 92nd ranked defense in the country this year. So even if he didn't, if we don't have a top 10 defense this next year, but if he can jump up in the top 50s, he's, vastly improved it. So I guess I think a lot of what you just said, Jeff, depends also on how good the offense is, because if the defense is pretty good, but the offense is improved, it'll buy all of them, Heupel, Knowles, it'll buy all of them more time. So I think it probably more depends on if the offense can take a step forward with one of the young quarterbacks that they're going to have to move to, assuming Joey doesn't get another year.
Yeah, well, one other thing that can mitigate this, I'm not entirely sure that the offense can cover all the problems in the defense anymore. I thought that worked basically with Hendon for 1 year, and then everything else just doesn't look like maybe Heupel can quite sustain that level of offensive competency. But there is a benefit to Penn State firing him. I don't know how they'll do the finances, but he's got buyout money coming from Penn State. And so if Tennessee is paying, I think Brent Hubbs proposed this on the VolQuest thing. If Tennessee is paying 1.5 of a $3 million contract and Penn State's paying 1.5, what I hope that means is that there's money in the budget for them to hit the portal pretty hard and find big safeties, find smart players to kind of accelerate. I mean, honestly, you could have players from Penn State who have played for him who might be able to come along and kind of aid the growing process.
I've also heard Michigan's open for business. I don't know.
Hey, Savion Hyder. Right. Come on, baby. Savion Hyder. We got you, dog. Yeah.
I heard Michigan. I heard you might be shopping around Michigan. I don't know.
We need a running back out of there.
Oh gosh.
Oh jeez. Yeah. So are we? I guess Jeff. Let's start with you because you were ready to see Tim Banks out of here, maybe more than all of us. I think everyone
all of you was combined.
Yeah, I think everyone was like,
agree.
Ready or agrees with the decision ultimately, but I think you were the most passionate about that change. And since you're also now maybe the least excited about the Jim Knowles replacement. Where does that?
We just want to know what will make you happy, brother.
Yeah, right. Seriously, like where does that leave you? So now you got your wish with Tim Banks gone. Now we got Jim Knowles. Like, what's your thought process on the trade there for the defensive coordinators?
Scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably like a 7. I think what you said earlier is when you got a guy with that kind of resume, you got to sign up for him. If I were running the search, I might have went in a little different direction, but I'm not. I'm on a podcast that's like voluntarily provided. So Josh Heupel gets paid to make these decisions, and you'll talk yourself into it, man. If we brought back Jeremy Pruitt, I would be busily talking myself into
I'd totally be down.
his renaissance. And so I'm already like, okay, this is going to be great. I promise.
Yeah. You're at 10-2. This is the life of a Vol fan. You're at 10-2 in July and you're suicidal by Halloween.
It's a terminal diagnosis.
Yeah. It's a terminal diagnosis.
Exactly.
I'm generally enthused, Mac. I just have, I honestly, if we had a cupcake schedule next year, I'd probably be up at like an 8 or a 9. I'm just worried that his particular skill set maybe needs more time to grow than our fan base has appetite for. But if it weren't for that unique dynamic, I'd probably be at 8 or 9. I mean, this is a prestigious hire. It's the kind of hire Tennessee football should be able to make.
Does this hire make or break the whole Josh Heupel era? Like, is this it for him? Like,
well, I mean, that's exactly my concern, man. Not that they matter, but Vandy's Barstool, they tweeted out, this is the end of Josh Heupel's time at Tennessee, this hire. And I was like, how is that possible? How could you talk yourself into that? And that's when the tumblers kind of clicked for me. It kind of fell into place that like, oh, if this guy needs a couple years to get to elite, I don't know that Josh has that time. I think he probably does, particularly as a Danny White hire, but he might not.
Yeah, it's hard to divorce Josh Heupel and Danny White. Like, it just feels like they are, in it together until it's,
ride or die, baby.
Right. I mean, it's going to take burning mattresses again, I think, for Danny White to actually pull the trigger on Josh Heupel. And obviously, none of us hopes that, none of us are out here like just advocating for Josh Heupel to lose his job. Like we would prefer him to just do a good job and the program get better. But
we will burn mattresses.
We will, exactly.
If Danny White ever hears this, Danny, we will burn mattresses. We have done it before. Never forget Shiano Sunday, son.
He will charge you for the space that you burn the mattress on. You will have to pay a licensing fee for the parking lot.
I feel like a little kid. I'm like, just tell me the stories, Grandpa. Just tell me the story. Burning mattresses. I wasn't here for that. I want to know. Tell me the stories.
Have you seen the Lane Kiffin documentary that came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Nick watched it firsthand, right? You drove up to that madhouse?
Drove over there, man. The whole city was on fire. It was crazy. Looked like Watts in L.A. watch rights.
To right the ship. My thought on like Tim Banks and moving on from Tim Banks is what I appreciate about this kind of a move, and there may be a lot of red flags, asterisks, whatever, on the hire. But what I think that the program needs to do to move up into the next echelon of talent and success is you have to create a winning culture. There has to be a culture in the school that says we're elite. We're going to compete with the best of the best, which means we're going to bring in the best of the best. Like you said, Mac, like this guy's the most expensive defensive coordinator on the market right now. So we're going to bring him in. He's going to shore up the defense. We got a offensive mind in Heupel that's already proven that he can do a lot with a little. And we're going to compete. And with as far as like Tim Banks, a lot of people on social media being like, last year he had a top 10 defense. Now he's gone. Like, how can you justify that? And there has to be consequences. There has to be consequence for not cutting the mustard and competing at a high level. And there's a lot of blame to go around. There's probably a whole nother episode for us on like why are we so bad this year? And there's a lot of blame to go around. But this kind of a move, what it signals to me as a fan is that we're serious about winning. And we understand that in order to do that, especially in an era of NIL, and did you guys see the partnership? I can't remember what school it is now.
Utah.
Utah.
Yeah. Half a billion.
I mean, what are we doing? Like, I mean, the entire landscape of the thing is changing. The college football playoff committee is an absolute mess. That's a whole nother episode, right? So, I mean, things are just crazy. But in order to compete, you gotta get the best, and there has to be consequences for not, kind of living up to the expectation. And so with Tim Banks, I don't hate the guy, I don't wish him evil, but you got to go, right? I mean, there's got to be consequences.
Jeff wishes him evil, just to be clear.
I've heard he's a family man. I hope he's very happy at home with his family being
and
paid
his millions of dollars that he's now being paid to not coach at Tennessee.
Yeah. To the point Joe just made about hiring the best and whatnot, Tennessee ought to be able to make moves like this, and this is also acting like you're a premier program.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Now, Nick, you asked, does this make or break Josh Heupel? I think that Josh Heupel has earned enough goodwill. I've been critical, but he's earned enough goodwill in what he's done to stabilize and develop the program that I think Josh can probably have another offensive coordinator hire in his tenure at Tennessee. But I think this is probably his last defensive coordinator hire if things don't go well. Right.
Yeah.
So, maybe at some point you have to get rid of Halsey.
That's a good point.
And you can justify that. But if it's a train wreck again, I don't know that he gets to hire the next defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's great. So the one question I'd originally posed when we kind of were talking about getting on this podcast was, originally it was, should we fire Tim Banks? Right. And then obviously that's happened.
Yes, we should.
So I think everyone agrees. I'm probably the less less agreement than everyone that we should have fired Tim Banks. Now I am on board that I think it was a good decision. The reason I'm on board with firing Tim Banks at this point in time is because of who you've gotten to replace him. To me, that was more important than deciding to get rid of him. I feel pretty good about getting Jim Knowles. Like, Jim Knowles is not someone that I thought I just assumed Jim Knowles would be looking to become a head coach again. This is before I did a lot of research, but it sounds like at his age and with his experience, I think he's probably pretty content to make good money calling defensive plays, running the defense, and not having the responsibilities and the stress of being a head coach. That's just the vibe I get. And so on that note, I think my kind of initial reason why I would have been okay with retaining Tim Banks is, like Joe mentioned, last year we had the number 6 defense in the country. I think our defense was elite last year. And so I think that the ceiling with Tim Banks was probably pretty high as almost any defensive coordinator in the country. The issue that I agree with everyone on is that the floor is probably too low. I think we were too volatile. We were really good sometimes, really bad other times. And I'm hoping that Jim Knowles, if he can't increase the ceiling, I don't think that's the end of the world. We just really need him to increase the floor of what our defense is capable of.
Yeah, agreed.
Nick's already said to me, off air once, like if we can consistently, have a top 25 defense or just be around that number, that should, if Josh Heupel is, who he's going to be here at University of Tennessee, if he's going to be successful, that should be enough for us to be in the college football playoff year in, year out, competing for championships. A top 25 defense should be enough with the amount of, offensive firepower that you have consistently under a Josh Heupel coach team. So I do think that firing Tim Banks, when all said and done, was a good decision, but I think it's because of who you replaced him with. I think if, had we not hired Jim Knowles today or potentially hired him today, I think I would still be a little bit more, I don't know if this is a good decision or not. I think I'd need to see who it is. But if Jim Knowles is for sure who it is, I think I'm with you guys that this was a good decision and that, it was time.
I should probably be elated that it's not William Inge that they're announcing. I should
Seriously.
probably just
You should be.
remember what we're working with here.
Right.
This is, although, correct me if I'm wrong, is this the third straight defensive coordinator we've hired from Penn State? Not third straight, but third, like in recent memory?
Because Shoop, Banks,
Tim Banks, and Jim Knowles. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Third time's a trick. Third time's a trick, boys.
Hey,
Don't overthink the room on this. We have hired 3 defensive coordinators in recent memory from the consistently second, third best Big Ten team, the team that can't beat Ohio State, can't beat Oregon, can't win.
Can we not talk about this?
But at least this one did coach at Ohio State. So
right.
A little bit different than the other two.
Drink a gallon of
Big Ten
bleach.
plays defense. Big Ten plays defense.
No, Big Ten doesn't play offense.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Let's give Ohio State their flowers.
You let the Yankee have a mic.
Ohio State is a good team. They're consistently good on offense. And
100%.
like when Penn State played,
a little different.
Yeah, no. When Penn State has played Ohio State, I mean, this year that was a good game. Even though Penn State had lost James Franklin already, I mean that was a pretty good game still, at least for moments. So I
think they held Indiana to a pretty low score as well. I don't remember I don't remember the final score, but
right.
I mean, they held Oregon to 17. That I was thinking about like just his year last year. They held Oregon to 17. And then they lost that game in overtime, Penn State did. And, it seemed like everything just sort of started to unravel in Franklin after that. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that. And how much of that affected his ability, Knowles' ability to kind of get the defense up. It's hard to get up for games when you're getting pasted, and there's a lot of things there. But, I think he's proven himself. Obviously, he's got a track record. But even last year, like he had a pretty good defense there, at least at the beginning. And then I think there was just all kinds of problems internally, and how much of that he can control. Hopefully things are cooler and calmer in Tennessee.
Yeah, they won't be cooler. It's much hotter here. But, sorry. There's at least one dad joke per pod, right? There it is. I do think there's something else, too, to the fact that he had pretty elite defenses at Oklahoma State. Like, I think and they played a pretty high-powered, fast-paced offense there as well. And so maybe Heupel
they played a lot of high-powered, fast-paced in that era. You know? Yeah.
Right. So, and I think he had like a number 4 ranked defense his last year there. And I think his other years he was really high as well. So that is another reason to, I think, have some hope that, he'll pair well with, what Josh Heupel does on offense.
Isn't it interesting that there's starting to be a Josh Heupel coaching tree in the SEC? So you've got the Mississippi State job. Now you've got Golish down in Florida. Heupel is starting to seed his own people in the conference. And
who, Lord willing, won't outpace him.
Yeah, right. Looking at you, Alec Golish. I do think it's helpful to have a guy who has that Oklahoma State experience with like air raid stuff back in the day to draw on. That may be a way to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And yeah, I mean, you've got LSU on the schedule next year. I mean, obviously they're going to look a lot different with Lane Kiffin. As you know, you've already said a couple times, Jeff, like the schedule next year is brutal. So I think next year is going to be a really telling season defensively of like how much progress can we make with a new coach with quite a bit of player turnover with starters. Like what kind of progress can we make in year one? Because if we're competitive, you know, I don't necessarily think we have to have a top 25 defense in year one under Jim Knowles. But I mean, if we're in the top 50, you know, top 40, if we can kind of creep back up into the stratosphere of competitive defensively, I think that should improve what our season looks like a lot. You know, I mean, I think obviously, of course, every year the biggest question is always going to be quarterback, right? So like the quarterback situation's up in the air. How good can we actually be with a true freshman, Faison Brandon, if he wins the job? How good can we be with a redshirt freshman, GMAC, right? Or obviously, if Joey comes back, I really do think that's going to be the best case scenario for Jim Knowles and the future of Josh Heupel. Now,
pour
obviously,
one out for the Merc Slinger not getting mentioned in that. Just pour one out for the guy.
He's gone,
he's
bro.
washed. He's washed.
He's cooked. Told you that this time last year.
But I do think, you know, even though quarterback is going to be the most important thing, of course, if Faison is the best player, he's going to win the job. You know, if GMAC's best player is going to win the job, it doesn't matter if Joey comes back or not. If those guys are good, they're going to win the job. Now, I say that's how it should be. I also have this like fear of like Josh Heupel. We've seen him pick Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker twice. And so it's like, how much can we trust him to evaluate the returning guy who knows the system, even though he might not actually be better than Faison or GMAC? And honestly, gun to my head right now, I think Faison is got.
My question is, did Faison play volleyball in high school? That's what I would like to know.
Oh, no. If he ever touches one, somebody slap his hand. It's what Joe already said. Find a bad cop. Find somebody who's a butthole who will carry a clobbering stick around when they miss tackles, when they don't hold their discipline before the snap on offense. Like just somebody in that building needs to be a jerk. We need a hammer.
Or like even if it's Rodney Gardner who's already on the staff, just turn him loose, right? Like just tell him this is part of your job description now, right? Like that'll be interesting too to see if Knowles brings in a lot of new blood or how many of the guys that are on staff right now are retained. And we probably won't know that until after the bowl game.
I feel like Garner's a lock. I just don't know that you can go out and get better than Rodney Garner pretty much anywhere in the country. But yeah, when you bring in a guy like this, I mean, Mac, you said we probably can't expect the top 25 defense next year. He's not taking a pay cut in total salary to come to Tennessee. He's going to be one of the highest paid. That should come with the resources you need to fill out that room to get to the place you want to be.
Well, someone's going to have to coach safeties because Tim Banks coached safeties. So
did he? Well, no,
Mac is
think
Mac
he's
is not
insane.
convinced that Joey is better than Nico. And honestly, We talked off camera one day this week, and he made some compelling arguments. So I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to that conversation.
no, frig. This can't happen. I need you to add me to your group chat so that I can monitor these kind of conversations. This is not.
This was in person.
Well, hey, Joe, Joe, to push back on your point about Nico, I submit to you Boo Carter. Right. So, like, it's just got to be different. There's got to. I get exactly what you're saying about like player retention. You're exactly right. This is why college football is in crisis in large part. But between the portal windows, somebody has to say, "Oh, we won't cut you. We'll set your butt right there on the bench, and you're going to watch the whole game, buddy, right here with a front row seat." We've got to have something like that. I don't know that a Saban style personality can ever come back, but you've got to have somebody who will get in their face. I was just going to ask, did y'all love the linebackers last year? I feel like I spent a lot of time frustrated. Now they're smaller; they're a smaller linebacking core, but I don't remember at any point being like, "Man, they're
I
really."
mean, they don't stand out in a way that's
Yeah,
like this linebacker core is elite, but they weren't bad. You know, probably middle of the road SEC linebackers is what I would say.
yeah, T-Linden.
Sure. Yep. But well, I was going to say, assuming that no one leaves on their own accord for a better job. I mean, the offensive side of the football is not going to change any, right? Like we don't think we're getting rid of Halsey or anything like that, right? I mean,
I don't think so.
Is Halsey even the coordinator? I mean, it's so weird. Like we don't know what goes on, but I mean, it seems like it's Heupel's offense, and it almost feels like it doesn't really matter who the offensive coordinator is, except for Golish, as the four of us have talked about many times off camera. Golish did seem like the guy with the big stick that would tell everybody to kick rocks if they weren't playing the right way, and so it seems like they've missed that on the offensive side of the ball. But was Golish calling plays or was Heupel? I mean, it's who knows?
Pure speculation. Oh, just pure speculation. It may be too that Golish had the chops with Josh to tell him no in a way Joey doesn't. Even if he's not
Sure.
the big stick, but on the call he could say, "Josh, no, we're doing this XYZ
Yeah.
thing."
Yeah. Don't run
I
that
don't
play.
know when we'll ever have that again. Anyway, sorry, Mac. dad. His dad was in his ear
Big
last year.
Nick was in his
It
ear.
Big Nick. Yeah.
Sure.
Great question.
And if he is
Well,
calling
what's he doing?
plays, why did he not take 30 lashes for calling a throw into the flat on the goal line at Alabama out of 12 personnel when everybody and their brother knew you were not running the football? Sorry, I probably will never get over that in my whole entire life.
Well, you're going to get to see it on highlight packages for the rest of your life, so probably
Yeah,
not.
true. Yeah, JG's a VFL. Yeah, for sure. We still don't know who told him to sneak. Yeah. I want someone to say that to Heupel. Who told you to throw the football into the flat? That's what Danny White should have called him on the phone.
Who called the code red? Who called the code red?
Oklahoma. To throw to a true freshman tight end who'd caught like 3 footballs ever. Yeah. Well, that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of making my point, which is like, if one way or the other, like it seems like he needs help. And so if Halsey can't get that done, either helping him call plays or telling him like, no, don't do that. Don't throw the football on the goal line when it's, the game's on the line and you're
Stop mentioning
gotta,
Nick. I'm going to run out in traffic.
I can't, brother. It's terminal. You just got to lean into it. You got to feel the pain so you never forget. Just win, baby.
Who cares? Bulls are dead. But actually, here's just what I did care about. If I were running the athletic department, you could not drag me back to the Music City Bowl with all the chains and tractors in Tennessee. That has been a disaster for Tennessee for so many years. I would have played in the Duke's Mayo Bowl on Christmas Day before I
Hey,
went to
let
the
me say
friggin'
this.
Music City Bowl
Hey,
ever again.
I was at the Music City Bowl, and I watched
Stop
Derek
going to
Barnett.
games, Nick.
Listen, man, I watched Derek Barnett break Reggie White's sack record at the Music City Bowl. That was a good moment.
That's not what I saw. I saw, hey, we have to make a new rule again.
What's that, Matt? Yeah, sure was.
As always, it was against the Zebras.
About Illinois, I mean, it's all I'll say, and I may be stealing your thunder, is I assume that by December 30th, when the game's played, we'll know if Joey's coming back or not, especially if the timeline is anything similar to what Pavia's was last year, and Joey's basically doing the same thing that he did. And so if he's not coming back and GMAC's going to play, then that could be an exciting thing to just watch him get live reps. But other than that, not really exciting.
Well, I did read that. I don't know. The VolQuest guys said that they think that both teams will probably have most of their regular season roster playing. So it's not going to be like a cakewalk for either team, and it's not going to be a glorified scrimmage in participants. It's a glorified scrimmage in real life. But there's probably going to be a lot of the regulars playing.
Sure. Yeah, I'm still pro bowl season as well. I mean, it's more college football. I mean, I can't be upset about
If
that.
it weren't the Music City Bowl, guys, there's going to be something crazy happen. I mean,
Neat. Jeff already does.
yeah, it's. I'm just thinking through calibers. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
That was one of the primary objectives of this podcast.
Yeah, again, complete outsider. But I think the plan this year was that Bishop Boswell was going to play the kind of the Meshack role. Gillespie was going to kind of step in. Is a different kind of impact version of Zakai Ziegler. And then I think Barnes really did fall in love with that Florida team with the ability to play, two posts at one time. So that was going to be the game plan. And I really think the idea, which has me kind of black pilled at this point, is that those elements would carry Tennessee until Ament matured and took them to another level. It really looks like Barnes went out of his way to go after a freshman in a way we've not seen at Tennessee. He probably did that for Durant, right? Maybe did it for TJ Ford, but definitely for Durant. He really committed to Nate Ament. And I think it's because he thought when this kid hits the end of the season as he kind of moves into another phase of physical maturity, it's going to put the team on the next level. And the reason I'm a little depressed about this year's team is that I just think we're behind that curve. I don't think this team is up to snuff in a way that buys us time to let Nate Ament mature and take us to another level. Still might happen by the end of the year. This team should be much better come March than they are right now. I think that was baked in. I just don't know if we're starting as well as they had anticipated we would. I definitely think he's better than Meshack at the same point in their careers.
You
Yeah,
mentioned it, but I would have said the free throws, like the ability to just finish a game the way that you're supposed to. I mean, that's what stood out most to me.
well, the thing that stood out to me is that there wasn't the debilitating extended drought that you just kind of anticipate is going to
Expect
happen with a
from
Rick
Rick
Barnes
Barnes
team.
teams. Yeah.
Usually sometime early in the second half, right? And it didn't happen at Houston. It's happened every other year of Rick Barnes' career at Tennessee, and it's happened in the games we've lost since then. So, Mac, I'm not trying to be a doomer on this, but right right now, the Houston game feels like the phase of the moon aligned where this thing we've seen in every possible version didn't happen to us. The shots went in. And I don't know if that's replicable. Uh, Lord, please let it be replicable. But like I just kept waiting for that devastating drought and it never came. And I saw it every other game. The Kansas one. Well, and then Syracuse is embarrassing, right? That's an embarrassing loss. Um, the it in some ways it's more the same in that for all of Barnes' vaunted defensive intensity and how great his teams are, we've consistently seen it in games that matter. The defense playing very well isn't enough to overcome the deficit of the drought, right? So this is kind of like an amplified version of that. Um, I I don't want to also poo poo on the carry point you made earlier. I've really enjoyed him too. I like the way he competes, but I have heard the theory that um, our guard play has been pretty special for the last couple years because the paint is not very clogged up. and he definitely keeps a defender closer to the rim. He just does. And if you've got a guy like Gillespie who's height challenged, that becomes a disadvantage for him. The thing about Carey that I'm worried about, I'm not willing to say this is what's happening, but Carey's numbers look really good. It's just a fundamental rule of basketball. You're going to have one player on any team that is the most productive player for his team that night. The question is, can you win games with that player being the most productive player on your team? Right? So you think about all the empty calorie guys you've seen come through basketball, huge stats. Teams are not good, right? That it's early. Again, I'm trying my hardest not to doom because I've been voicing negativity on a couple of different things here. It's just on the table with Carey that when you run your offense through him, you're going to get a lot of numbers. You're going to get a lot of counting stats, but your team may win less than you expect or less than you would hope. Maybe that's not the case, but that's very much on the table at this point.
We got another big test coming up in their next game against Louisville next week. I think they're 8-1.
I will be floored if we beat Louisville. I will be floored if we beat Louisville. And I think I would just say that would be true if we were hitting on all cylinders at this phase of the season. That's not like we're terrible, we're going to lose to a good team. I just think Louisville is a particularly good team this year. Yeah, baby, go. I mean, from your lips to God's ears. The Nashville game was a home.
I've seen Joe play basketball. I mean, I've seen him on the. Let me say this: I've seen him on a basketball court.
Yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Well, to be sure, we will probably be a top 5 seed, and we will probably lose in the Elite Eight to whoever wins the national championship. You can pretty much set your watch by it. So yeah, sure. Right. Easy to do. Easy to do.
I agree with that. I do think you're pumping some sunshine pretty hard. Like some team is going to win that game, so the sight lines didn't affect them, right? Like I've never really cared for that idea. Like it's standard equipment. Uh, that being said,
Yeah, you know all the times Joe's played at Madison Square Garden.
um, that said, I do think it's a strong point that this team still has to figure out who their teammates are. And so, again, with my comment that you're pumping some sunshine, I hope you're right. And I agree with you that it's on the table. My scales tip a little bit differently. And again, better ball syndrome. The thing I will just say, though, is I really think, in a way we haven't seen yet in his tenure at Tennessee, Rick Barnes really pushed his chips to the center of the table this year. And I just think we're behind the pace. That could all catch up. It could all work out well. I just right now I tip a little bit in the other direction. Yeah, this is my. It's like a little bit darker version of what I said about the defensive coordinator. If I were betting, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't put significant odds on this. But I do think you have a scenario here. If I'm right about Barnes pushing his cards to the center of the table, and it works out poorly. So let's say we bail out Sweet 16, or we're out earlier than that. Rick Barnes is at an age where everybody has to know he could retire. He seems still invigorated. He still really seems to like the NIL era and reconstructing his roster every year. But if he has really went all in to overcome the things that have hamstrung him in the past, and it goes poorly because the chemistry of the sauce just didn't come together the way he thought it would. I do think this may be him giving up on the dream of powering through to a higher
Get to the
ceiling than
Final
he's
Four.
experienced.
Yeah, winning a
Yeah.
national championship.
I think he may say, I gave it my best shot, guys, and it wasn't in the cards. I'm
Yeah,
not rooting
make
for that. I'm probably I'm the least enthusiastic Rick Barnes guy in our friend group anyway, but he's been good for the program. I'm not rooting for that. I just think it's, you take one massive shot at this stage of your career, and if it flops, you may not feel like you've got any other bullets to shoot at the problem. Yeah. No. I don't think at this point Tennessee honestly can fire Rick Barnes. And even as a critic of his, I don't think we should fire Rick Barnes. I think he kind of gets to do what he wants from here on out. Seriously, as critical as I've been of him. But I do think that maybe Rick saying, I tried to step out of my box and it didn't work. I don't really have anything else to throw at it.
Well, my boy Cade Phillips is out for the season. He was my favorite player last year, and so I just think they're cooked, to be frank.
Yeah. Estrella's
Big
good
Cade
too.
Phillips. Big
You
Cade
just
Phillips
can't
guy.
have both at the same time, apparently. They can't occupy the same space at the same time. You can have Estrella or you can have Cade Phillips. That's just how it is.
Yeah, you can have one or the other. All right, I'm out. I'll see you guys later. He is he is the 8 foot tall Dane Bradshaw. That's what he is. Yeah.
The thing I'll say for Cade Phillips is he never really takes much off the table. If he's on the court, unless it's a foul, he tends to be doing something productive. I'm not saying you take him over Estrella. He's a kid that I really like too. He's one of my particular rooting interests on these teams because he just kind of makes positive contributions one way or the other. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to stretch it too far. I just don't. I don't often see him doing something like uh, Triple J would do back in the day, where you're like, you've
Don't
played
invoke
basketball
his
before,
name.
right? Yeah. You were a McDonald's All American. I'm curious if you've ever thought about like moving through traffic. So I like Cade Phillips.
I think we're cooked.
Grant Hurst. Couldn't lose Grant Hurst. No shade thrown at Grant Hurst. Just for the record, I'm not throwing shade there. I just thought it was a funny comment. Just win, baby.
Can't wait to have the Nico Joey discussion. I'm so ready.
There may be
I'm not gonna do it right now, but I'm so ready.
That may be the first like homicide over streaming that's ever happened on the internet. Somehow the ill will powers through the internet.
I'll just be sitting here. Jeff will go off screen, and all of a sudden he'll just come in this door behind me. Be like, "How did that even happen?"
I'm open to that. Tim Banks was still terrible, but that still may be true.
Yeah, they were both a problem at different times. The problem is they could never both put it together in the same game. So
You know what? They're the problem in my life because I don't know how to quit them.
it's terminal.
It's terminal.